comment,
and subscribe for more content.
Where's the notification bell?
It's to the right of you.
Oh.
What's up, guys? Welcome to this edition of a Funko Popcast. I am DK Wrestler.
And I'm MD Shady.
And in today's podcast, it is one of our yearly traditions here as terms of the podcast. It is the best and worst podcast. More specifically, this year, it's obviously the best and worst of 2022 as terms to Funko Pops. And I mean, like I mentioned, we've been doing this since I believe 2020, and it's been one of our most unique podcasts that we have done here on the channel. And for this podcast, in case anyone is brand new to it this year in 2022, we have 10 categories we're going to be looking at as terms to the best and worst. Give our worst and our best as terms to these categories. Some examples being like convention exclusives and then chase pops, but we're not going to give the entire list because it'll just spoil it. But we will go through the 10 categories. And especially if you do enjoy this podcast and you want us to do some categories that weren't listed here, we will consider doing those categories for next year's best and worst podcast, and we'll definitely add them to it because I would definitely like to do some new categories when it comes to next year. But without further ado, I guess, MD Shady, are you ready for the best and worst of 2022?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Let's get right to it.
All right. So I remember the last couple of years, I believe it was yourself going first and then it was me. But I think I'm going to switch it up this time. I think I'm going to go myself first and then go you right after. So the first category we're going to be looking at is the best and worst new pop lineup and series. And obviously what we mean by this, let's say if this was current, so lineups, I guess, would be like, let's say ad icons, animation, television, movies, stuff like that, or series would be as terms to a licensor that has made pops. And I mean, Funko's always coming up with new things, or at least getting new licenses every single year. And I mean, this one was kind of difficult, but there were some cool new ones released for 2022. So I guess starting off with me, so the worst new pop lineup and series, in my opinion, has to be the pop trading cards. Now, I understand where they're coming with this. We've seen the last couple of years with the albums, the comic book covers, the VHS covers. But what makes the trading cards, I guess, the worst is just how bad the proportion sizing is between an actual trading card and the pop trading card that we have. At least with the album covers, it's almost the size of a vinyl record. And then with the game covers, it's somewhat bigger, but at least for the covers, and especially the size of a 4-inch pop, they had to make it a little bit bigger. And then for other things, I mean, there's some things that are a bit bigger and some things that are a bit smaller when you're doing these things. But the sizing between an actual trading card and the pop trading card just doesn't make sense to me. I've always said on the pod that pop trading card should have been more of a pocket pop size because of the fact that obviously with an actual pocket pop, you can actually use the size of a trading card to actually pull off what they were doing with the pops. And what makes these worse is adding those Panini exclusives, which the only difference is just whatever's going on the cover there for the trading card, especially when you look at the football ones and all they did was just add a gold foil instead of making the pops significantly different, like adding a metallic touch to, let's say, the football ones to make the helmet more shinier. I just was very disappointed about these pop trading cards. And especially I just seen a Tom Brady Tampa Bay Buccaneers one recently at my local GameStop, and seeing that in person, it's like, yeah, these aren't honestly the greatest. I'd rather just get a normal Tom Brady pop, to be honest, which actually I think there was one there at our GameStop also, rather than just getting the pop trading cards. But I see where Funko was going. It just wasn't my cup of tea, though. And then the best new pop lineup and series has to be the Pop Deluxe moments that just came out within the last couple of weeks as of recording this podcast, which we are recording this at the end of November. More specifically, it's more towards of the music ones where it's more of the concert moments. I really like what's going on with that, where you have a bunch of band members, you have a cool stage, and then just adding the trussing all the way around is really, really awesome, especially for bands that might not have cool album covers per se, and then you can still acknowledge those bands in some sort of pop form. I really enjoy it for that aspect. And I do like, that's why I just mentioned also Pop Deluxe moments, is the movie ones also, like the Home Alone one that just came out, I believe, like yesterday or the day before. I mean, the Elf one with the box is a little bit unnecessary, but even the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation one was pretty sweet also. And especially, it's not just a flat background. They actually puffed it up to where it is more of like a three-dimensional object that is there, especially when you look at the drum kit of the Metallica one. So I really enjoyed what they're doing with these concert moments, and I can't wait to see what the Pop Rocks lineup has to offer in 2023, since the last couple of years they've been really upping their game, since they've been a little bit lackluster for prior years before the albums even came out.
All right, so for new lineup, my worst has to be the Funko Shop exclusive gold princesses. It is technically a new line. I mean, the Disney princesses aren't really a new line, but these ones in specific is kind of a line in my opinion, and these just weren't great. I do like the fact that you get the pin and you can get the pin book to put them in. That's a cool thing, I suppose, but these pops are pretty bland. I mean, we've seen the original ones, which are the Disney princesses, and those look fine. But then you have, I believe there's at least 11 or 12 of them, and they're just the gold dresses. For some of them, it really doesn't make sense. And we're seeing them one after another. About every month or so, we see one. So it's getting annoying, and I think it's pretty much done now, thankfully, because this has got to be the worst lineup of 2022, in my opinion. And then the best new lineup of 2022 is also the deluxe moments. These are insane. I mean, maybe some of the craziest pops we've ever seen. For some people, it might not be too crazy, but I do really enjoy the concert moments. I do own one of them so far. And yeah, it's really cool. I love how they've done it where you have these pops, which are technically different from some other pops that we've seen of the same characters. They look really good. The background, like DK had discussed about how it's puffed up in some places, is a really nice touch where you don't necessarily have to mold like a plastic drum kit or anything like that. I think that doing the background like that is just good enough. And then as well as it coming in the cool like protector case, I suppose, as well as having the like sides of the stage, just amazing. And then the movie ones as well are awesome. More specifically, the Home Alone one, which is just insane, where you have that whole staircase and the three pops and they're like posed perfectly. That looks so cool. I can't wait to see what other ones we get, because I feel like the list is just never ending of what Funko could do with this new like size of pop that they're making.
All right, so the second category we're going to be looking at is current pop lineup and series. So basically the same thing as the last category we were just doing, except it is anything that has been going around since Funko Pops were created in 2010. As terms to the worst current pop lineup and series, I have to go with Artist Series. I mean, Artist Series is still going on in 2022. They haven't been producing them as much as we've seen them last year in 2021, but they're still producing them, and a lot of them are still pretty bad. I mean, the closest thing to be all right, I guess, would have to be the Darth Vader ones they announced at Funko Fair earlier in the year, where it's like the 4 different planets that Darth Vader is known for, but they're still not like entirely great Artist Series pops. Some of the ones we got for the Obi-Wan Kenobi lineup also were pretty bad. And then some of the new Walmart exclusive Black Panther Artist Series pops were not entirely the greatest. You had the different colors, and especially I think they all had the same design. I hope that Artist Series isn't the worst lineup next year, because I'm hoping Artist Series is done in 2023, to be honest. And then the best current lineup in series, I have to give it to WWE this year. I think WWE really killed it for their lineup. I mean, in past years, a lot of them just seemed like repurposed wrestlers, and especially like they were giving us a lot of the same wrestlers and not enough new ones. Well, this year they gave us a lot of new ones, or they gave us some existing wrestlers they already done, but in ways that we wanted it done. Like example, the Eddie Guerrero with the Low Rider Pop Rides. That was something people really wanted. It was the first ever WWE Pop Ride, so that was really cool. We got the American Dream Dusty Rhodes as another wrestler that had never been made into pop form before, and it was really cool to finally have him in that. And especially Rob Van Dam, where he was a GameStop exclusive. You had the cool WrestleMania 22 pin to go along with it. And especially he's holding his customized Money in the Bank briefcase, which it wasn't really a disappointing lineup. If there was anything disappointing, maybe it would be that they did a metallic version of Razor Ramon, but that's about it. They had a lot of Alexa Blisses, but all of them were really awesome in their own ways. There was a couple Roman Reigns, and then you had some cool multi-packs for WWE. So overall, I think WWE killed it. So I don't know the likeliness, though, of WWE making it next year unless somehow they top off this year.
So I think it's a no-brainer on my list. Artist Series is the worst as well. I mean, we've discussed about it on the pod multiple times how a large majority of the time these Artist Series pops are not good at all. Sometimes, most of the time, terrible. There are some times where we say, hey, this isn't bad, but it's never really good at all. And I agree with DK. This has to end in 2023. I mean, these are more expensive pops. You do get a protector with them, like a hard stack, but I don't think that's even necessary. I mean, it does make it a bit more of a premium piece, but for the price you're paying for these, you're just not getting a really awesome pop. And I'm surprised that anybody even likes these pops, to be honest. And then for my best current lineup for 2022, I have to go with The Simpsons. I mean, a really awesome lineup that we've seen throughout the years, obviously, with the original 4 Simpsons pops, which are complete grails now, as well as the abundance of differences we've seen with the Simpsons lineups, whether it's the regular episodes or the Treehouse of Horror lineup that we get. I think that Funko is still killing it with the Simpsons, with Jimbo Jones and Kearney that we got this year, which were awesome, and the announcements that we got for the Treehouse of Horror pops, which unfortunately that lineup did get pushed back, so that probably won't be out till 2023. But I do think that's an awesome lineup as well that was announced in 2022, and I just love me some Simpsons pops.
All right, the next category we're going to be looking at is retailer exclusives. So we're going to be looking at different retailers, whether it's GameStop, Hot Topic, Walmart, Target, you name it, retailers that have pops exclusive to them and you can only get them there. Normally, how I rank these is what retailer had really awesome pops that normally I would go and grab, but then you could realistically rank them on how the store like kind of treats the way that they deal with their pops, like we've seen with Walmart for so many years about not shipping them in some sort of bubble wrap or anything and they come damaged. Going to the worst retailer, and it's got to be Walmart this year. And it sucks because Walmart normally has some really cool exclusive pops, but what makes Walmart the worst this year is the abundance of the multi-packs that are just repurposed commons. They had a lot of them. I mean, stores like Target did, and same with Amazon, but Walmart had more of them than any other retailer. I mean, you had the Thor Love and Thunder 4-pack, you had the Batman 4-pack, you had, I believe there was a Jurassic World 3-pack with like the dinosaurs. I mean, there were a couple of multi-packs that actually made sense for Walmart exclusives, example being the NWO 3-pack for the WWE lineup, but there's just a lot of multi-packs that just did not make sense to be made, especially when you can get all of them as common pops. Another example are the Artist Series pops that I mentioned. I mean, you had the Darth Vader ones and you had the Black Panther ones that were exclusive to Walmart. And the best retailer exclusive, and I think this is actually the second year in a row that I'm naming this retailer the best, is GameStop. And I mean, maybe a little bit biased because GameStop is the closest retailer to me, but I found that a lot of the pops that I was looking for in 2022 as terms to exclusives ended up going to GameStop, which, like I mentioned, it is the closest retailer to me. So to have the exclusives go to a retailer that I don't have to travel so far to get is super easy. I mean, you had a lot of WWE exclusives that are really cool, like the Eddie Guerrero Rise, the new Undertaker that I still have yet to get, but still really cool. You have the brand new, speaking of deluxe series, the Red Saber series pops that I've been really enjoying since I do like the Sith Lord pops of Star Wars. Some of the Yu-Gi-Oh pops were GameStop exclusives like Wing Dragon of Raw, and you had the Pop and T bundle that I've yet to get.
So the worst licensor, in my opinion, for 2022 has to be FYE, and that's only because of the fact that they didn't really get that many pops this year. I feel like previous years they've definitely gotten more and some stuff that was pretty cool, but this year they only got a few pops, and a lot of them are nothing that I'm interested in. So just for that reason, they have to be the worst. Though I do like them because here in Canada, we do have Sunrise Records, which FYE exclusives go to. So they are accessible for us in Canada. But like I said, with only a few pops and nothing that I'm interested in, it's got to be the worst this year. And then the best retailer. This was a tough one because it was kind of a split between three different retailers, but I ended up going with Walmart. I think that Walmart actually had a lot of exclusives this year. And now Canada, for some reason, is actually getting those exclusives, which in past years, we really do not get a lot at Walmart. And it still is that way, but we are starting to get some of those exclusives, more specifically with those concert moments that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. We got those at our local Walmart, which I was amazed to see because I did not think that was going to be happening. Unfortunately, we didn't get any of the like deluxe albums or anything like that, at least at our local Walmart or any of the surrounding ones. But I do feel like there was a lot of really cool stuff. There was a lot of different pop albums. I believe there was a few different VHS covers that went to Walmart as well. I definitely think there was a lot. And because now some of these Walmart exclusives are more accessible to get rather than in the past years where you're either buying on the secondary market or you're going to have to travel to the States to go to a Walmart there to try to find those. I feel like Walmart has definitely just upped their game exclusive wise here in 2022.
All right, so the next category we have is conventions. So something I actually predicted in a video near the end of 2021 is that I had predicted that Funko was going to have more convention exclusives than prior years, especially with a lot of things opening up, which they did, at least for the list that I have listed down for, I'm going to call it eligible conventions. There was a total of 7 conventions that Funko had exclusives for this year in 2022, which the list goes of WonderCon that happened in April, Star Wars Celebration that happened in May, SDCC that happened in July, FunCon in August, D23 in September, New York Comic Con in October, and this upcoming weekend, as we're recording this podcast, will be CCXP in Brazil. I'm not counting Target Con because that's just I guess I'm going to call it a glorified convention where it's just a bunch of Target exclusives with a really cool sticker at the side, only being exclusive to Target. And I'm not counting LA Comic Con because usually all those pops get shared to Hot Topic anyway. So it's almost like a glorified Hot Topic exclusive in a way. So for the worst convention this year, I have to say Star Wars Celebration. And it hurts me to say that. It's not because the only thing you can get at this convention is obviously Star Wars pops, because if that was the case, that means it would be a tie with also D23 since they only had Disney pops. It's because Star Wars Celebration this year did not feel like it was a convention with their exclusives. It felt like a more glorified, like anniversary set of pops that you could have released as commons. I mean, you had the singular pops of like, Darth Vader, Stormtrooper, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Chewbacca, I believe. And then you had a 5-pack with all 5 of those exact characters together. You had the Lando pop rides, which isn't all that great because if you wanted a Millennium Falcon pop rides, you can just get the Han Solo one that was released as an Amazon exclusive. You had the concept series with like the 3PO and R2D2 2-pack, which is just the same pops that we had gotten years prior, except slapped into the 2-pack. And then a Darth Vader for the concept series set that essentially just had a little bit of a different positioning. The only pops that actually felt like con exclusives from this con were the Diamond Collection Grogu and R2D2 pop and bag bundles, which were limited piece counts. So to have this set, you could have released them as a like 45th anniversary set because it was not only this year the 45th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, but it was the 45th anniversary of the entire Star Wars franchise. So for Funko to not make an exciting con exclusive lineup was a little bit disappointing for this occasion, especially when you had pops released like Krishantan that could have been a part of Star Wars Celebration instead of SDCC, or even that Anakin Skywalker could have released at that point instead of NYCC. So if they would have switched around different pops, I think this would have been better. And then the best convention overall, I have to give it to New York Comic Con, which if you tuned into the podcast for this thing last year. I didn't vote New York Comic Con because it was divided into two, where the first half was New York Comic Con and then the other half was Festival of Fun due to shipment delays. But now, because New York Comic Con seemed to get their usual big lot of Funko Pop exclusives, that New York Comic Con once again reigns supreme as the best con overall for Funko Pops, especially when you have pops like I just mentioned, Anakin Skywalker. You had the first ever Borat Funko Pop, which people were really excited. This convention actually had the only office exclusive for a con the entire year at New York Comic Con. You had a really cool Yu-Gi-Oh pop, which I was excited because it was the very first con exclusive Yu-Gi-Oh pop. And then you even had that cool One Piece pop rides, just to name another example. This was filled with a lot of different cool pops, ranging from different fandoms, unlike certain conventions where maybe, let's say, WonderCon, they're very Disney heavy. And then even CCXP, I felt, was very anime heavy. But with this, it's just a bunch of different fandoms that people like, and a lot of people could get something out of the selection for New York Comic Con this year.
All right. So the worst con, in my opinion, has to be Star Wars Celebration. And it is unfortunate to say because, like DK just discussed, I mean, he summed it up beautifully there. You got these 5 pops and then the 5-pack. That really sucks. It's the anniversary of Star Wars. There could have been so many cool things. And we did see a lot of really cool Star Wars pops this year. So I don't see why those couldn't have been at Star Wars Celebration rather than just being, let's say, other con exclusives or even some of the Amazon exclusives that we got with that like 3-pack moments for the Phantom Menace. That was really cool. I wouldn't have been too angry if that was a Galacticon or Star Wars Celebration exclusive. That Lando, yeah, you want to get the Han Solo, in my opinion. It's actually right above me. Unfortunately, there's not a video of me, but I do have that. So does DK. And I feel like if you're going to get that, you want the Han Solo. And if you really want to get the Lando one, where are you going to put it? I keep that thing out of box because the box is massive. If you have room for both of the boxes, kudos to you. But I feel like a lot of Funko Pop collectors are running out of room to put their pops because there's so many good ones. And Lando just isn't a great one because it's basically just a repurposed mold. And then the best con of 2022 is also New York Comic Con. I mean, come on. There's no other way to put it. Like, it's just the best. It has to be. There's so many banger pops that came out. And like DK said, you have a spread of tons of different fandoms going on. Some of the best pops, I think, from this con were Borat. We also see the other 2 turtles for the Turtles and the Power Rangers mashup. Have a couple different Simpsons pops with Jimbo Jones and Kearney. We had the 5-headed dragon, which is a gorgeous looking pop for Yu-Gi-Oh! Steve from Blue's Clues, which is a pop that a lot of people have really been wanting, especially since we got the 2 different blue pops. And then as well as the Yosemite Sam, that's awesome to see some Looney Tunes pops getting some love at some conventions. Yeah, New York Comic Con by far was the best convention this year.
All right, the next category is convention exclusive pop. So at this point, based off of the last category of convention overall, it's taking one pop only from the 7 different conventions we went over, and which pop was the best convention exclusive or the worst also for 2022. Which, starting off with the worst convention exclusive pop, I gotta say it's the Star Wars 5-pack. I mean, it's just repurposed singular pops, and it was in the same convention as this 5-pack. So I think if this 5-pack was significantly different by like 1 or 2 pops, I think it wouldn't have taken the spot. And then for the best convention exclusive pop, I actually have to give it to the CCXP exclusive Summon Skull. I think this pop was done very well, especially being a pop that I felt should have been more of a 6-inch figure rather than a 4-inch figure, but I'm not complaining because it's easier to display the 4-inch figures than they are to display 6-inch figures. I think they did a really awesome job as turns to this pop and the detail, and especially it's a dual monster from Yu-Gi-Oh that a lot of people have been wanting Funko to make into pop form for so long. And I mean, there weren't that many like convention exclusive pops that I really copped for in 2022. So for this one to be one of them was just very exciting to see me get in 2022.
Yeah, there definitely was a ton of really good convention exclusives and bad ones, and I have one in particular, and that is the D&D and Stranger Things mashup 2-pack of both of the Vecnas. I do like how they aren't just repurposed, they are a little bit different than the singular pops. But now I have to buy this, which kind of sucks because it's something that I don't really want. But because I do kind of want a full Stranger Things collection, I feel like I have to have this pop that I don't necessarily want. The Vecna from Stranger Things is already a really ugly pop, which I think could have been done a lot better. The execution just wasn't great, and it's got to be the worst con pop. And then the best con pop for 2022, in my opinion, is Borat from New York Comic Con. This is a really awesome pop. I feel like there was a ton of hype over this pop as well. And it's one of those human character pops where you could have this displayed out of box on your desk at the office, and your coworker might come up and be like, "Oh, look at that. That's Borat." You can tell that it's Borat. It looks awesome. He's got his luggage. He's got that classic mustache as well as the USA flag. And this is just a sweet pop. I mean, something that I felt like we probably were never going to get because Borat's not one of the cleanest, most kid-friendly movies out there. But Funko just decided, you know what, we're going to do a Borat pop anyways. And I think it turned out fabulous.
All right, so the next category we're going to be looking at is called irregular pop. So what we mean by that is anything that is different from the regular 3.754-inch size pop. So the 6-inch, a 10-inch, an 18-inch, a deluxe pop, a moment, something like that, that could be different, which this was actually probably the most difficult category because there weren't that many like irregular pops this year, or especially MD did a little bit of a twist the last couple of years, is that you could do a 3.75-inch, but it doesn't look like what your regular pops look like, which I managed to actually have one of those be placed in this list. So the worst irregular pop has to be the 18-inch Boba Fett. I don't think that that was really necessary in my opinion. I mean, already you've had the like normal Boba Fett's, whether it's like the Bounty Hunter collection or just a lot of them from the Book of Boba Fett series. And then you've obviously had like 10-inch Boba Fett's before, and then just doing the 18-inch. I hate when they do the 18-inch, especially when it just doesn't make sense for a character and it's just for Funko to add money into their pockets. And then the best irregular pop goes with that theme of like, it doesn't look like your regular pop. And that has got to be, and I believe it was a Target exclusive, the Frog of Thunder from Loki, where essentially it was in a jar. The pop itself, out of box, is a frog pop inside of a jar. So it was almost like you have a figure inside of something that is also inside of something, which I thought was pretty sweet. And I mean, Loki was a popular series.
The worst irregular pop on my list is the Mech Strike Venom 10-inch pop. The Mech Strike set is just terrible. I mean, it's not a great set, and I feel like it did not sell because I see them all over the place, it seems like. So to do a 10-inch is kind of weird because they're expecting it to sell well if you're going to make a pop that big. I mean, this pop has some detail, sure, but it's overall just not great. The set wasn't great, and that's what really shows with this pop, is that I want to see what the sales even look like for this pop because I bet they are maybe one of the worst for 2022. And then the best irregular pop, in my opinion, is the Jurassic Park movie poster. What a crazy pop. It's huge. It's massive. And you have that classic Jurassic Park logo on the background for the movie poster itself. And then you have the T-Rex biting the Velociraptor, I believe it is, which looks really, really cool. I've seen this in person at our local Toys R Us. I've also seen a ton of people on YouTube or Instagram showing it off. And it is just a really gorgeous set and is definitely an irregular pop.
All right, so the next category we're going to be looking at is best and worst multi-pack of 2022. And I mean, we already discussed about how many bad multi-packs there were in 2022, but there were some pretty cool multi-packs also in 2022. Starting off with the worst multi-pack of 2022, in my opinion, has to be the Ryu and Bright Bomber Fortnite Street Fighter collab 2-pack. This was kind of pointless. I mean, you had two characters that seemed like they were already shelf sitters as singular pops for two different licensors, and then they just mesh them together for a 2-pack. And I mean, it kind of makes sense because Fortnite does have the license to do skins from Street Fighter, But just in my opinion, this was not the way to do it as a Fortnite 2-pack. You could have 2 complete new skins, or even for Street Fighter, you could have 2 complete new characters. But instead, they just mashed up characters that seemed like they were shelf sitters as common singular pops and put them in a 2-pack, and especially because they haven't made any more since. And still at my GameStop, there are at least 1 or 2 of them sitting there on the shelf. And then the best multi-pack has to go to the Blink-182 3-pack. I mean, those pops are really awesome with Mark Hoppus, Travis Barker, and Tom DeLonge, and especially how they're very unique compared to a lot of Pop Rocks pops, where not only do they have their instruments, but also there are mic stands included with that. It's very funny because they are butt-ass naked in the 3 pops there, and it's the only way you can get those versions technically at the moment, because they just recently announced that deluxe albums of like the same album that those pops came from, but those are slightly different compared to these ones.
The worst multi-pack in 2022, in my opinion, has to be the 4-pack that is exclusive to Costco of Eevee, Vaporeon, Flareon, and Jolteon. I mean, it's not really a terrible 4-pack. It makes sense that these pops would be repurposed together like this. Obviously, it's Eevee and the 3 evolutions from Gen 1, but this could have been so much better. And the first reason is they could have waited to do all of the different evolutions, which there are most of them at this point, and then done like a 9-pack or something like that where you have all of the evolutions. I think that's the way to go with this. And now maybe in the future, we're going to see a second 4-pack, and then maybe even another 2-pack or whatever after that, and then maybe even get that 9-pack like I'm talking about. So this is really just unnecessary, and there's no Costco exclusive sticker on it, which would have made it better. I mean, you can only get it at Costco, so why would there not be a sticker on it? And for that reason, it makes it the worst multi-pack of the year. And then the best multi-pack of the year is the Blink-182 3-pack. I mean, it's so great. DK discussed it very well there. I mean, these pops look sweet. It's awesome to have Tom back in the band, and we finally get a Tom pop, because we did have those original Blink-182 pops with just Mark and Travis. But now we get this 3-pack, which is hilarious because they are naked. And I was able to pick it up without having to pay some secondary market value price, which is awesome. And yeah, the mic stands is sweet. It's really awesome to see that. I probably will end up taking this pop out of the box at some point just to take a look at what they look like, because I have seen some photos and they look so cool because it looks like they're actually performing inside of this 3-pack.
All right, so this next category is one of our more unique categories that not a lot of people discuss about. We call it the Overachiever and the Underachiever, which for this category, basically, we put the focus on one character that Funko has produced a lot of pops for, which you guys have seen in many years, like superhero pops like Batman and like Superman and stuff like that, where there'd be so many pops made each year for that character. But for this, what makes it best and worst is that the Overachiever is the character who has a lot of pops made in this singular year, that the majority of the pops, or all of them, were really good and not disappointing. And then Underachiever is obviously the worst part, which is the complete opposite, where the majority or all the pops are just straight garbage, pretty much. So for the Underachiever for 2022, this one hurts me a bit to say, but it's got to be Darth Vader. Darth Vader has had a lot of Funko Pops in 2022, with obviously here I'm going to mention the Artist Series Pops, which weren't really the greatest. Even the Darth Vader Pops from the Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series set were not that good, because they were very similar, but with like a different arm positioning, or you repurpose that to make a 2-pack with Obi-Wan, or a 5-pack with a lot of the commons. It just wasn't all that good. And especially the Snowman Darth Vader Pops, whether it's the singular or the Amazon exclusive 5-pack, there's just not that many cool Darth Vaders. So yeah, I felt there were not that many good Darth Vader pops. I mean, the diecast was pretty decent, but I don't know. There was a lot of Darth Vader pops though that were made, and a lot of them were not the greatest. And the overachiever this year, I felt, was Spider-Man. Spider-Man had a lot of really cool Funko Pops this year, especially with the Beyond Amazing set. You had that like octopus looking one. I can't remember the exact name of it, but obviously you guys will see a photo up there. The Walmart exclusive comic covers of Spider-Man was really cool, especially the effect of the web actually sticking onto the cover where it looks like he's swinging off of a building. The Spider-Man 2099 from San Diego Comic-Con was a little different from what we normally see of Spider-Man 2099. And then even that new Bug's Eye Armor Spider-Man for CCXP was also pretty decent for that lineup. So I think a lot of the Spider-Man pops were pretty good, and there weren't that many trashy Spider-Man pops this year, especially this year being, I believe, it was the 60th anniversary of Spider-Man. So it made sense for Spider-Man to have a lot of cool pops this year.
So for this year's Underachiever, I also went with Darth Vader. I feel like it's tough for Funko to make Darth Vader pops now that people are really going to want to get, because we have seen so many good ones, with the one where he's getting shocked and the lights and sounds, which is awesome as well. And just some of those classic Darth Vaders as well are some of the ones that people might want. So now when we're seeing other Darth Vaders, it's like, I feel like we've already seen this. Though there were a couple good ones, I feel like there was no hype to very many Darth Vader pops this year. And then the overachiever this year is Boba Fett, in my opinion. There was a lot of really cool Boba Fett pops. And I don't necessarily agree with DK. I do think that Boba Fett is deserving of an 18-inch pop, just because it makes sense. The timing is perfect to make it, with the Book of Boba being big earlier in the year. And it just makes so much sense. And a lot of these Boba Fett pops were really cool. We've seen some different ones.
The next category we'll be looking at is the OMG and WTF moment of the year. This is kind of like the same thing where the OMG is leaning towards the best and the WTF is the worst. So a lineup or a pop that made you say OMG, or something that made you super mad and say WTF. So there weren't that many WTFs, to be honest. Like none that essentially made me say WTF. More of, okay, I'm not surprised that this is done, but it's still disappointing, but not to the level of WTF. There was only a couple instances, but this one definitely made me say WTF, and that is how Vecna turned out in Funko Pop form. I feel like a lot of us were really expecting Vecna to look good, especially after seeing so many people on like Instagram do the concept arts of what Vecna could look like in pop form, whether it's singular or like in a deluxe form. And then when we actually seen it announced with the season 4 wave 2 announcement of Stranger Things pops, it just, it was so disappointing. It was such a huge letdown, especially because we had the singular one, and then you put that in a very pointless multi-pack with Steve and Robin, and then you have, like you mentioned earlier, the Vecna and Vecna 2-pack, which is another version of Vecna that's just like and the only thing that saves that pretty much would be the Vecna from Dungeons and Dragons and not Stranger Things. So I mean, it was very disappointing. I'm hoping like if they do another Vecna pop, especially like a deluxe version, that I feel like people would exactly know what I'm talking about when I say that. I hope that they really improve the way that Vecna looks in that pop if they do it. But otherwise, the Vecna pops are just meh. I mean, only 3, which is why I wouldn't have also put it under Underachiever, because I wanted to put like more than like maybe 5 in order to be eligible for that. But the Vecna was so disappointing. I couldn't believe how much of a letdown it was. And then my OMG moment of the year has to be the brand new Knuckles pop. There was a lot of things that made me say, oh my God, but seeing a revamped Knuckles pop after feeling like we should have gotten it last year instead of Tails, and then we got it here for TargetCon this year in 2022, was really amazing. I love the new mold of Knuckles, and especially because it is a flocked pop, so much better. I do own it. I got it on the secondary market, but I still got it because it's that awesome of a pop, and definitely one of the best Funko Pops, in my opinion, at least, of 2022. And I mean, I think a lot of people really enjoyed this announcement for TargetCon and as terms to Funko Pops overall in 2022.
My WTF moment is a pop that's actually kind of cool, but it definitely made me say WTF, and that is the FAO Schwarz toy soldier with the Swarovski, or however it's pronounced, crystals that are on it. This is a pretty cool pop, and I actually have done a custom Pikachu one, which I believe was earlier this year. So it's really cool to see an actual one, but The reason is because due to my knowledge, I believe that there was only 4 of these made and they retailed for 2000 USD, and that's crazy. One, there's only 4 pieces, which is insane, and then this has got to be the most expensive retail pop ever, and it makes sense because you have these crystals that are put onto it and it's so little with only 4 pieces, but it definitely is a WTF moment of like, this has got to be one of the most insane retail pops that we've ever seen. And then my OMG moment of the year is the Alien ET moment pop. This is insane. It's so cool how they got them flying on the bike over the moon with this cool deluxe base of the moon, which glows in the dark. Such a crazy pop, and it definitely made me say OMG.
All right, so the last category we have here, the 10th and final category, is the best and worst chase pop of 2022. And I felt there weren't that many chase pops compared to prior years. There still was a decent amount, but I felt like you could think of more chase pops from like last year or the year before than you can think of this year. But for 2022, the worst chase pop has to be that Hot Topic exclusive Tinkerbell, where essentially it's meant to have the blush cheeks, which you can definitely tell in the glam shot. But when you actually look at it in person, you can barely tell that that's what the chase is. It almost looks identical to what the common one looks like. If you had them out of box and trying to tell which one's the common and the chase, you barely can tell or can't even tell at all, which is why I think it is the worst chase of 2022. And then the best chase of 2022, in my opinion, has to be the Alexa Bliss from the WWE lineup. I think that pop is absolutely insane for a lot of reasons. I mean, it looks entirely different, and not just entirely different, but like literally the whole figure, everything about it is different. Different hair, different outfit, different color shoes, different positioning with her feet, and different positioning with her arms. Literally both the common and the chase of Alexa Bliss that was announced for Funko Fair earlier in this year is 2 completely different figures. And I enjoy that they did that because it doesn't happen that often that we get those kinds of chase figures. Most likely we'd get, okay, here's one pop, and then you get a glow in the dark chase or a flock chase or specification chase, or you get some sort of cool chase, but it's not entirely altered that much. But this one was completely altered to where it could have even been sold as just a different pop. And I mean, I don't know what the secondary market value is, but I won't be surprised if it's expensive because it's such a sought after figure and how just insane the figure looks compared to the common, although the common still looks as excellent as the chase.
The worst chase pop, in my opinion, this year is also the Tinkerbell. I mean, I liked it when it first got announced because of the glam shots. I said, okay, this is a decent chase, not good by any means. But then when you actually see it in person and you can't tell what the difference is, that is something that's not good. And we've seen our fair share over the years of bad chases, but we've never seen a chase where you can't tell what the difference is, besides maybe being out of box with a glow change. So yeah, this might be one of the worst chases of all time. So it definitely makes it the worst chase of 2022. And then the best chase of 2022 is also Alexa Bliss. I mean, it makes so much sense because, like DK said, it's a completely different figure, head to toe, whole new molding and everything, which is perfect. That's what you want to see from a great Funko Pop chase, especially when it stays relevant, because both of these versions make sense. And having a chase like this is just insane. Sometimes we see like bloody variants, which I don't think are the best chases to begin with, because a lot of the times they're not done well, or a glow chase, or like DK said, with flocked, or just a position change, or an object that's in someone's hand. And a lot of the times chases just aren't that great, mostly with anime where you get these glow in the dark chases, which look really, really good, but I feel like they could just do the glow in the dark version and not have to have a chase. So with this Alexa Bliss being a whole new figure, it's just unbelievable. One of the best chases we've seen for a while. So definitely the best of this year.
Anyways, guys, that is going to be the end of this week's podcast. If you enjoyed our best and worst of 2022 podcast here on the Funko Popcast, make sure you smash that like button, comment in the comment section below, and let us know your opinions on some of these categories, and if there's any categories we did not mention that you think should be a category on next year's best and worst list. Press the subscribe button for more content like this podcast and any other videos we do on this channel in the future, and press the little bell beside it to be notified of when that future content gets released. And if you guys haven't yet, follow us on all of our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at a Funko Popcast. It'll be listed in the description below. But anyways, guys, thank you for listening to the best and worst of 2022 podcast here on a Funko Popcast, and we hope to see you guys next week. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
Very nice. Great success. Peace in, peace out.